Hi, I'm Hal Roberts. This is Bridge City News. Here's some of the top stories we've been following. The death toll continues to climb in Kentucky as search and rescue workers try to find survivors among the debris following devastating tornadoes. COVID-19 has hit the Calgary Flames, and a few of their hockey games have been postponed as a result. And a fundraiser to support underprivileged children in our region took place over the weekend. Video journalist Micah Quinn will explain.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Roberts.
Thanks so much for joining us. The governor of Kentucky says close to 80 people were killed in the state during a cluster of devastating tornadoes which hit the region on Friday.
Everybody out there, get the help you need. Take care of yourself, and we'll continue to provide updates. To the people of Western Kentucky, we're not going anywhere. We're going to be with you today. We're going to be with you tomorrow, and we're going to be there with you to rebuild. I believe that this is going to end up being an E5 tornado, which you can have the warnings, but what do you do, right? The homes this hit, if you haven't been down there, it didn't take the roof off. That's what we're used to seeing with tornadoes, right? That if you get to your safe place, you're safe. If you get to the basement, you're safe. There's no safe place when you get hit by something like this. It's hard. We've had a pandemic the last 2 years. We've had a historic ice storm. We had flooding that had some of our eastern Kentucky towns underwater, and now we have this. We'll push through all of it because we don't have a choice. And we're strong enough to do it.
American journalist and one of our regular contributors, Lisa Daftari, says things are so bad the National Guard has been brought in to help those in Kentucky.
A lot of people not accounted for. As you said, it's already over 80. The National Guard has been called and they are going home to home, checking to see if there are any survivors or any remains. It's awful. It's awful. You know, these are the natural devastations that show no compassion. And, they are right there in the eye of it.
Lisa will have more on the devastating tornadoes and how the death toll may climb even higher. That's coming up in the second half of our program. Ottawa is setting aside $40 billion to compensate First Nations children and undertake long-term reforms to the child welfare system. Reports say the money will be reflected in Tuesday's fall economic statement. The federal government has until the end of December to reach an agreement with child welfare advocates over the compensation it's been ordered to pay First Nations children by a human rights tribunal. A federal court ruling said Ottawa needed to pay $40,000 in damages to each of the thousands of individual First Nations children removed from their homes, along with some of their relatives. The Bank of Canada says it will continue to target an annual inflation rate of between 1% and 3%. Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland and Bank of Canada Governor Tiff Macklem says the new 5-year deal should help the central bank manage inflationary pressures during and after the pandemic.
Maintaining a stable environment for the prices Canadians pay is the paramount objective for Canada's monetary policy. That has been the case for the past 30 years, and that will remain the case for the next 5 years as well. In focusing on price stability, we also recognize that monetary policy should support maximum sustainable employment in Canada.
The COVID-19 pandemic has underscored the value of a clear and well-understood inflation target. Our framework guided our policy response at the outset of this crisis, including our use of extraordinary liquidity operations and quantitative easing. It's also guided our decisions to taper and then end quantitative easing. And even as the complications of reopening the global economy have caused inflation in Canada and in many other countries to rise, medium and longer run inflation expectations in Canada remain well anchored on the 2% target.
The RCMP in Brooks, Alberta are investigating multiple stickers found around the city tied to white supremacy. The stickers containing phrases such as "White Lives Matter" and "Make White Kids" were found throughout the city. They were mostly discovered on mailboxes and in playgrounds. The mayor of Brooks, John Petrie, says these stickers are not what their community is all about.
I believe it's an isolated incident. We've worked very hard in this community for inclusion, and I don't think it's reflective of what the community's all about here. But we're not very happy, with the stickers whatsoever. I've talked to the RCMP. They're investigating this. They take it very serious, and and what they're asking for. The problem with this is that. In order to catch this person, we need either, a camera shot or a security camera who maybe catches this person in the act. And this will certainly help, with the RCMP investigation. So if somebody is able to do that, send that information to the Brooks RCMP or to Crime Stoppers there.
Mayor Petrie adds that so far the city crews have removed around 150 of those stickers in their community. Police say they plan to lay mischief charges once they find the culprits. Timothy Slaney had his summary conviction appeal heard in Lethbridge Court in connection with his earlier provincial court conviction on 17 municipal bylaw infractions. Slaney, who is part of the volunteer-run Overdose Prevention Society, was ticketed repeatedly for allegedly operating a pop-up drug consumption site in Lethbridge Park without a permit in September and October of 2020. Some numbers are rolling in from the Lethbridge Police Christmas Check Stop campaign from the weekend. Police say around 350 vehicles were stopped with 30 violation tickets handed out. There were also 2 immediate roadside sanction fails and a person arrested for public intoxication. Lethbridge Police say the Check Stop program will continue through December in an effort to help keep impaired drivers off the road during the holiday season. They remind motorists that if you do drink, make arrangements for a safe ride home. A local not-for-profit group called Rise Above hosted an interesting fundraising event Sunday afternoon for underprivileged kids and families who are in need. The funds will go towards 40 youth group homes in our city. As Micah Quinn explains now, this fundraiser is meant to give kids a Christmas to remember.
Elijah, you high-five Batman.
The Lethbridge-based group Rise Above were at Toys R Us, Sobeys North, and Canadian Tire North for their Christmas to Remember Toy and Food Drive. The group is hoping to make Christmas happen for 40 group home youth in Lethbridge.
It's the joy and appreciation that you see in these kids and in these families' faces. Sometimes the year is so hard, and then this can just really brighten up their spirits.
Rise Above is accepting toys, food, and cash donations.
The items still needed are gift cards, toys, items for teenagers and young youth.
The group says fundraisers like this one are meant to help out group youth homes in Lethbridge who don't receive much in the way of government funding.
We should be writing to our MLA about this. We should be doing more fundraisers for our group home youth, for Hestia Homes, for YWCA, for Woods Homes. They're the ones who need it. They're the ones taking care of our youth.
Rise Above also focuses on mental health in our community, and if you are in need of help, you can message them on Facebook.
If you have a mental health issue or problem, or you just want to talk. Sometimes you just need a sounding board.
On December 19th, Rise Above will team up with Santa to deliver the toys and gifts to the over 40 group home youth in our city. For Bridge City News, I'm Micah Quinn.
The Canadian Yoga Institute is fundraising for a great cause here in our community, and the Lethbridge Yoga Institute is raising money for the new Chinook Child and Youth Advocacy Centre. 85% of the funds for the sales of the yoga passes in the month of December will go towards the construction of the new centre.
So it really is providing the construction of a leased space that we have, and there are special needs with this leased space. That includes soundproofing for a forensic interview room and the remote testimony room, as well as construction of the play therapy room and the lobby area and the rest of it. This actually brings to life a centre that's desperately needed in our southwest region of the province, and we'll be joining basically 7 other CACs in the province in order to provide services for children 0 to 18 that have experienced sexual abuse, severe physical abuse, or severe neglect.
So the Chinook Child and Youth, because we don't have anything like that here in the city, families are having to go up to Calgary to get supports. And it's really important that Lethbridge and our surrounding communities has something that they can actually go to locally without the families having to go broke paying for those expenses, going to Calgary and going to other centers in order to get help. So the Canadian Yoga Institute is so happy that we have another charity that we can work with and help support the child and youth in the city.
Over $500,000 is needed to construct that new centre. The City of Lethbridge Christmas Tree Recycling Program will take place January the 15th. For close to 30 years now, the city and local youth groups have partnered to ensure that Christmas trees continue to give after the holiday season. Over 1.5 million kilograms, around 90,000 trees have been diverted from the landfill since the start of the program. Alberta Health Services says Red Deer Regional Hospital transferred 9 patients to Calgary and Edmonton over the weekend for surgeries. The agency says the patients were considered non-emergencies and the decision to transfer them was made to reduce patient wait times. Some healthcare professionals at the hospital say it's overcapacity when it comes to emergencies. But AHS says all emergency surgeries are still being handled at Red Deer Regional Hospital as normal. 6 players and a staff member of the Calgary Flames are in COVID-19 protocol, so the NHL has had to postpone the club's next 3 contests. The league said in a release that the games were postponed due to concern with the virus spreading and the likelihood of additional positive cases. The team's training facilities have been closed until further notice. The postponed games include Monday's game in Chicago, Tuesday's in Nashville, and Thursday's game versus Toronto. Calgary's the 3rd club this season to have games postponed due to a COVID-19 outbreak. The Ottawa Senators and New York Islanders have also postponed matches. Canada's 25-man roster for the upcoming World Under-20 Men's Hockey Championship in Red Deer and Edmonton will feature 16-year-old Connor Bedard. Bedard is one of 3 returning players who won silver earlier this year in Edmonton. He joins Wayne Gretzky, Sidney Crosby, and Connor McDavid among those who have played for Canada's junior team at just 16 years of age.
Pretty crazy to, hear myself, with those guys. But, I think, just dreaming of playing in this tournament and obviously getting the opportunity at the age I'm at is pretty special. And, to hear my name in the same sentence as those guys is pretty crazy.
I think I can speak for myself and the guys and the staff that expectation is gold medal. Obviously there's pressure anytime you put on the Canadian jersey. You're expected to win no matter what country you're playing in. So I think the guys know that there's a little bit of pressure behind us, but we feed off that, and we're confident in ourselves that we can do well.
The Winnipeg Blue Bombers are Grey Cup champions once again. The Bombers beat the Hamilton Tiger Cats 33-25 in overtime on Sunday. Quarterback Zach Claros was named the game's MVP.
Both teams, fighting, scratching, clawing, and we got the win there in the 4th. We were able to put some drives together, score some points. Jeremiah did an unbelievable job in the 4th quarter of getting them back and tying the game. And it's just a group of people. It's a group of guys. It's a resilient bunch, and I say it all the time. It's like a broken record, but it's the culture that Mike O'Shea has set. Just an amazing group. We never wavered. I threw 2 interceptions, put us in a bad spot. Guys picked me up. Hey, we're gonna get you the ball back. They did a great job of limiting the points there in the 3rd quarter when I put our defense in really bad positions, and they had belief in us to get it done in the 4th, and we did.
Congrats again going out to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, winning the 108th Grey Cup in Hamilton. By the way, the 2022 Grey Cup game will be played at Mosaic Stadium in Regina. The Manitoba government says it is extending a subsidy program to help employers during the pandemic. A paid sick leave program, which provides up to $600 per employee, will now run until the end of March. The funds can be used to cover time off for testing, vaccinations and their side effects, self-isolation, or care for loved ones. Now we'd like to introduce you to Brad Bartko. Brad is on a mission to make restaurants in Edmonton more accessible for the handicapped. He founded a group called Disability Accessible by Design that aims to guide local business owners on how to make their space and service more comfortable for people in a wheelchair or those who are living with disabilities.
With First Round or with a couple of bars and restaurants as well, we are consulting on how to make their space or their establishment more accessible for people with disabilities, and that's all kinds of disabilities, be more inclusive, as well as introducing staff training to better help the staff and better equip them to deal with people with disabilities and understand and how to talk to us, how to serve us, how to walk us to our table, all that fun stuff. And then on the flip side of that, also helping the people with disabilities connect better with the staff. And again, it's a win-win situation, bridging that gap and leveling up the awareness and the education piece of this community. There's many consulting firms out there. This is the first one with a man in a wheelchair kind of fronting it, and really the first time that bars and restaurants have rallied behind me. And I think that's because of the support I already have in the community, but it's super important.
What a wonderful idea. It was on this day that U.S. forces captured Iraq's ousted dictator Saddam Hussein. Authorities in communist Poland imposed martial law, and legendary actor Dick Van Dyke was born. This is Today in History for December the 13th.
December 13th, 2003.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
U.S. forces capture Iraq's ousted dictator Saddam Hussein nearly 9 months after the fall of Baghdad. Saddam is caught while hiding in a hole under a farmhouse near his hometown of Tikrit. In 2006, Saddam was sentenced to death and executed for the slaying of Iraqi Shiites during his regime. 1981. Authorities in communist Poland imposed martial law to crack down on the Solidarity labor movement. Martial law formally ends 2 years later. Communist rule in Poland crumbles by the end of the decade. 1950. End of a bitter battle in the Korean War as American-led troops break out of the Chosin Reservoir area. They thwart an attempt by a vastly larger force of North Korean and Chinese troops to encircle them. 1862. Union forces suffer a major defeat to Confederate troops at the Battle of Fredericksburg, Virginia. And 1925. Actor Dick Van Dyke, star of one of early TV's classic shows, is born in West Plains, Missouri. Today in History, December 13th. Sandy Kozel, The Associated Press.
It's amazing. He's still going strong today. Well, we had some sun mixed with cloud earlier today, and some of the snow melted once again. The mercury, however, will be plummeting soon. Full weather details are coming up. You know, considering it's the middle of December, the temperatures really haven't been that bad, but a cold front is making its way here, however. Jeanette Rocher is here with all of the weather details. Jeanette, how are things shaping up?
This evening's weather, mainly cloudy skies and a 30% chance of flurries with a low of -11. Tuesday, a mix of sun and cloud with a northwest wind to 20 kilometers per hour, high -9. Wednesday, we're looking at a high of -11 and a mix of sun and cloud. Thursday's weather, cloudy with 60% chance of flurries, high of -13. Friday, mix of sun and cloud, high -10. Saturday, also partly cloudy skies with a high of -4. And on Sunday, we're looking at a 60% chance of flurries. Looking over to the national forecast, Victoria's high 5 degrees with a mix of sun and cloud. Tomorrow's weather in Vancouver, they're looking at a wet mix of flurries and rain showers ending in the morning, then a mix of sun and cloud, winds gusting to 40 km with a high of 3 degrees. Over in Edmonton, 2 centimeters of snow expected in the morning, then clearing, high of -15. In Calgary, mainly cloudy skies tomorrow with a northwest wind at 20 kilometers per hour, high of -13 with a wind chill near -23. In Saskatoon, 60% chance of flurries late in the morning and the afternoon, risk of freezing rain late in the morning, and a high of -2. In Regina, cloudy skies, clearing in the afternoon, wind southwest 30 km per hour, gusting to 50 at times, high of -3. In Winnipeg, mainly sunny skies, increasing cloudiness in the afternoon, wind gust to 40 km, increasing to 60 kilometers per hour at times, high +1. And over in Toronto, mainly sunny skies with wind gusts to 40 km in the afternoon, high 6 degrees. Ottawa, sunny skies tomorrow and 5 degrees. In Montreal, they're looking at sunshine with a temperature near 1 degree, but wind gusts to 40 kilometers per hour. Over in Fredericton, 30% chance of showers and 30% chance of flurries in the morning. Wind gusts at 50 km and a temperature falling to -3 in the afternoon. Halifax, same thing with 30% chance of showers tomorrow, also 30% chance of flurries in the morning. Wind gusts at 50 km and the temperature falling to -1 also in the afternoon. Charlottetown, 60% chance of showers with flurries in the morning. Wind gusts to 60 km at times, high of 1 degree, but the temperature will be falling to -3. St. John's, rain showers changing to flurries with wind gusts at 40 km, high 2 degrees, but falling to -1 in the afternoon. That is your forecast.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says his government has proposed a number of solutions to avert a proposed electric vehicle rebate in the United States for American-built cars. Trudeau says that includes offering to align EV incentives in Canada and the U.S. to ensure there are no unfair advantages on either side. He says the aim would be to ensure that Canadian-built cars and trucks would be eligible for Joe Biden's proposed tax credit scheme. Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland warned last week of retaliatory tariffs and other measures if the United States tax credit proposal becomes law. According to a new study, globally, people spent more than $350 million daily on games and apps in 2021. The release figures by analytics company Berga says that adds up to $11 billion each and every month. The Apple App Store ranked the highest at $85.1 billion. Google Play apps and game spending for the same period was $47.9 billion. The cumulative spend for 2021 represented a growth of 19.71% from last year's figure, over $111 billion. The findings also said that for both 20 and 2021, Android beat Apple in downloads but trailed in revenue. Suncor Energy has reduced its planned capital spending for the next year, but increased its production guidance. The Calgary-based company says it is planning $4.7 billion in capital spending for next year. That is down from its guidance earlier this year for up to $5 billion. It also says it expects its production next year to rise above 5% from this year to up to 790,000 barrels of oil equivalent per day. The production guidance comes as it ramps up production at its Fort Hills mine, partially offset by the sale of its stake in the Golden Eagle offshore operations in the United Kingdom. Now, here's a look at today's markets. The markets were down pretty much across the board today. The TSX was down 142 points to 20,748. The Dow was down 320 to 35,651. The S&P 500 was down 43 points to 4669, and the Nasdaq was down 217 on the day to 15,413. West Texas Intermediate Oil was down 48 cents to 71.19 US per barrel. Natural gas was down 10 cents to 3.82 US. Gold was down a cent to 17.8666 US an ounce, and silver was even at 22.34 US an ounce. Wheat is at 12.76 per bushel, barley's at 9.69, canola's at 22.84, and corn is at $10.72 per bushel. Live cattle were up 10 cents to 136.95. Feeder cattle were up 65 cents to 165.53, and lean hogs were down 78 cents to 72.28. The Canadian dollar was even over the past 24 hours at 78.07 US. Recapping one of our top stories, rescuers continue to tally the loss of life following Friday's devastating tornadoes in Kentucky. Officials now say close to 80 people are confirmed dead, and there's still more than 100 unaccounted for. Tragically, the dead included 7 children killed in Bowling Green, including 2 infants and a 4-year-old. American journalist Lisa Daftari will have more details on the tragedy in Kentucky in just a moment. The death toll from the Kentucky tornado has now climbed to over 80, including a number of children. To discuss this in more detail is American correspondent Lisa Daftari, joining once again from Los Angeles. Lisa, so many regions in and around the Mayfield, Kentucky area have been devastated, and the death toll may climb even further.
Yes, the governor is saying that they're expecting the death toll to go over 100, maybe even today. A lot of people not accounted for. As you said, it's already over 80. The National Guard has been called in. They are going home to home, checking to see if there are any survivors or any remains. It's awful. It's awful. You know, these are the natural devastations that show no compassion. And, you know, they are right there in the eye of it. It's hitting multiple states, as it usually does this time of year. You know, this area is very prone to tornadoes and such, but Kentucky being the center and where we're seeing the majority of the devastation, the governor there has called for federal help. Joe Biden very late last night approved the aid package to go to Kentucky, and we're hoping for the best here.
Absolutely. Keep those families in prayer. Now, Lisa, there is speculation that former U.S. Vice President Mike Pence may be taking a shot at the Republican nomination and then a potential 2024 presidential run. Tell me more.
Yes, it looks like Mike Pence is hitting the road, and he made a stop in New Hampshire. And as you know, New Hampshire being politics central, right? If you want to get a good chance at this, or get an early start, I should say, you start in New Hampshire. Speculation, only speculation, that he is interested. He's meeting with a lot of people. He's hitting up a lot of different cities, and obviously the critics are saying, he can't get away from the Trump presidency, January 6th, not standing behind those who came in. So he's going to have trouble from both sides, obviously not getting the independent centrist voters because of his ties with the Trump administration. And on the other hand, from the GOP, getting criticism for not standing behind Donald Trump during the January 6th situation. So we'll see. I mean, he obviously has a large following. He also has, experience, and I think that goes a long way. So we shall see. We'll see how Donald Trump feels about this. We don't know what his reaction will be if Mike Pence does indeed throw his name into the ring here.
So, Lisa, what about Donald Trump himself? Has he put his name forward?
Yeah, that's the big question here, right? Will Donald Trump be the king or the kingmaker? Would he stand behind someone like a Mike Pence or Ron DeSantis, for example, from Florida, which many people are hoping will run? He's a very popular GOP frontrunner, right? No one has formally announced a run, but Donald Trump has hinted towards wanting to run in 2024, and obviously he has such a large following, as you know, Hal. He's probably the most popular political and I should say non-political figure we've had here in the United States. He still can get, thousands and thousands to a rally. So he definitely has the popularity. He also has the stigma. The media surely won't allow this and will do whatever they can to stand in the way. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But it should be interesting going up to 2024. I should add that today the Boston Herald reported that should Joe Biden run again, his approval rating for a rerun would be about 20% and Kamala Harris at 12%. So it's looking good for any GOP contender to get in there. But interesting times in the United States, I'll say that much.
Lisa, many Canadians are quite upset at how Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has handled the COVID-19 pandemic and our economy. Well, close to 70% of Americans say they didn't like the way U.S. President Joe Biden has handled inflation, and his approval rating appears to be plummeting, as we were discussing a little bit earlier. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, I don't know where they got 70% from, because I don't know who the 30% are who enjoy paying $6 at the pump, or enjoy paying 20 to 30% more for basic groceries, or enjoy, not being able to take a Christmas or New Year's trip this year because of the cost of travel and the cost of again, food and gas and basic goods. Look, nobody's happy with what's going on in the United States. And what this administration tries to do is they chalk everything up to the pandemic. Here in Los Angeles, in New York, in Chicago, we have a major crime problem. I'm talking about wonderful, affluent areas. You cannot go out in broad daylight with a handbag, with a nice watch, with a nice car. People are getting mugged at parks and at schools and outside restaurants in broad daylight. And again, when the administration is pressed about this, they will blame it on the pandemic. You talk about the inflation, they blame it on the pandemic. We talk about the supply issue we have with these cartons of goods sitting at our ports, and they blame it again on the pandemic. So I think the Americans are waking up to this. The voters are waking up to this, and they're thinking it can't all be because of the pandemic. This is being mishandled. And the governors in these Democratic states are abusing the system, and they're abusing the emergency laws, and they're abusing the mandates. And I think a lot of people, regardless of their political party, are becoming cognizant of what's going on. And I think it will show up in the midterms, certainly, and maybe in 2024 for the presidential.
U.S. President Joe Biden is meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin amid tensions over a Russian troop buildup near Ukraine.
Yeah, this is an interesting story, Hal. So President Biden has, they had a Zoom call with Putin, and they expressed the U.S. dissatisfaction with the Russians building up their assets on the Ukrainian border. And what they've done is that they've scheduled a future call. And in the meantime, the Russians are continuing to beef up their assets, and Ukraine's like, wait a minute, they're playing out the clock here, and they're continuing to fortify their presence here on the border. Look, we have the global community has spoken out about this. We know exactly what the Russians are up to, and we know that they will try to carry out whatever aggression they want to under the Biden presidency, because it seems like it's a free-for-all, and that there is no real consequence or penalty or even any firm words that are being shared by the U.S. president. They keep scheduling these calls. If you look at the foreign policy by Democrat administrations, particularly Biden and Obama, and this being a continuation perhaps of the Obama foreign policy, is to talk about diplomacy. And we schedule talks and look at what's happening at the Iran nuclear table. You can talk about the talks that are being scheduled with Putin. Where is it getting us? The same thing can go for the Chinese and the North Koreans. So our adversaries are laughing at us. They know that this is not a firm or serious foreign policy, U.S. president. So therefore, they will play out the clock and they will do what they want. They will carry out what they want under this presidency for sure.
Now, foreign ministers of the G7 group have warned Russia as well of massive consequences, maybe economic consequences as well, if it invades Ukraine, and urged it to de-escalate its military buildup on the border.
Yeah, that's the saving grace here. The G7, the largest economies in the global economy, in the global community, have met, and they obviously, one of the main things on their agenda is to really convey this message to Russia, to say, we will carry out sanctions. We will. There will be a penalty for your actions if you want to continue what you're doing against Ukraine. But it seems like, Russia plays this game of chess very well. They have all their pieces in the right places. And it seems like they're not deterred by any threats made by the G7. It looks like, it's gone on long enough. And perhaps the G7 is coming to the game a bit late to carry out any real threats that will carry weight with Putin. And we'll see. Maybe they know ways to find loopholes around these economic sanctions, and they certainly do. We know that, and therefore they're not taking these threats too seriously. But we know that they have these assets. We've heard from the Ukrainians that there are over 150,000 troops amassed at the Ukrainian border, and that's not a joke. It's not going to be a joke to remove them, and it seems like day by day they're looking to fortify those assets and not remove them anyway.
Lisa, recent satellite images show that Iran appears to be preparing for a launch as negotiations continue in Austria over its tattered nuclear deal with world powers. Tell me more.
Yeah, speaking of flexing muscles against the United States administration, look at the optics here, Hal. The Iranian regime wants a deal. Obviously, they want the sanctions removed, and they want to be part of the global community with regards to trade and with regards to opening up their banking system and getting the sanctions removed and all of that. But at the same time, while they're at the negotiation table, they don't feel any need to at least give the appearance of playing along or being on their best behavior. Back at home, we have satellite images that they are not only planning a launch, that they have certainly beefed up their enrichment of uranium. They have they have not backed off at all. The IAEA complains about a lack of transparency with regards to their weapons program. And here they are at the table making more demands and fewer compromises to move this plan along. Again, they know how badly the U.S., the West, wants this deal, and they are doing exactly, they're playing their hand as they should. They believe they're the ones who have the leverage. We talk about getting back into a 2015 Iran nuclear deal. That was the deal that was struck, the JCPOA, that was struck between the 5 world powers and the United States under President Obama. The difference being is back then, the Iranians had one of these wolves in sheep clothing type of president, Rouhani, who pretended at least to be on his best behavior and gave the visual of, we are playing along, we want that handshake, and we're going to do what we can to get that handshake. And they did, and they got billions of dollars of cash, along with the normalization of relations for a few years. President Trump, of course, ripped up that deal, and President Biden, when he campaigned with Kamala Harris, said, we're going to get right back into that deal. Now, we have seen no compromises. We have seen nothing from the Iranian regime, more chest thumping, more demands, and again, they will get back into the to the negotiating table with the United States and world powers because they know how badly the West wants this deal. It's a very, very bad formula and strategy to follow. And of course, again, I'll connect the dots one more time. This is what we're seeing throughout the world. We're seeing our adversaries playing out the clock. They're flexing their muscles, and they know that they can get away with whatever they want under a lack of U.S. leadership.
Now, still with Iran, it is preparing to launch a new ship for its Navy. The ship is called Shiraz, and it's supposed to be an intelligence gathering ship that will also be equipped with a helicopter and radar. Why should we be concerned about that?
Yeah, this is very concerning because as we've been following with multiple news stories about Iran seizing ships, this maritime strategy has been something that the Iranian regime has been following for quite a while. If you look at the last 40 years of the Iranian regime, since they came into power after the toppling of the Shah, this regime has done masterfully at spreading their influence globally. And they have done so through proxy terrorist groups in various nations. They have exported terrorism through suicide bombers in various places. They have given their influence in places like China and the African continent and Latin America by setting up schools and soup kitchens and obviously giving them internet and infrastructure in exchange for influence and terror organizations on the ground. And here we have them obviously expanding their influence in the seas. And this continues with that story. And again, if we don't connect the dots, we don't see what Iran's doing. This doesn't look like such a malign, situation with the Iranians just, expanding their capabilities in the sea. It goes to a larger story, a larger strategy, and one that the West should certainly keep an eye out for because it increases their influence, not just in their own surrounding area, but globally. And they know that. And that's exactly, their eyes are on the prize. And that's exactly what we should watch out for. When we're at the negotiating table, I know that the US has not called for other things like human rights abuses, like the import and export of terror by the Iranian regime, and of course, their expansion of their influence in the region. So this story definitely points to that.
Lisa, Uzbekistan is urging neighboring countries to keep helping Afghanistan. The country's foreign minister says the aid is needed to really help prevent a humanitarian crisis in the Taliban-led nation.
Yeah, it looks like it's a little too late for a humanitarian crisis. We're already looking at one, but Uzbekistan's point is the same as what Pakistan and all the other neighboring nations are saying. Please help them so we don't have to help them, is what they're really saying. Obviously, there are a lot of refugees. They're running out of the country, and for the right reasons. Obviously, the country is war torn. It's led by the Taliban. Women can't go to school. They can't have their jobs. There are people being shot on the street for no good reason. Journalists are being rounded up. Teachers are being rounded up, and the list goes on. The Taliban promised us a new face and better behavior, but we didn't get any of that. And now, to add to that, winter is coming. So you obviously see the humanitarian crisis increasing. Obviously, there is a shortage of electricity, heat, obviously food items, and people living on the streets. So, that all gets exacerbated with the winter months. And we're hoping that the right aid gets into the right hands. Not just that we give aid, but, a few months ago, I remember the administration here in Washington saying that we will give aid to the Taliban to disperse. That's not the right move. The Taliban will take advantage of that aid. They will use it for themselves. It will not get into the right hands. But perhaps we can find real partners on the ground over there, if they're still there, to help us hand out the aid and to help people in need. It's truly horrific. And I hope that we don't take our eyes off this story anytime soon, because it's a continuing crisis.
Do we know if the Taliban is allowing groups like Open Doors and the Red Cross to make its way in to help some of the people of Afghanistan?
It's interesting. So on a formal level, no. And I've heard a lot of these groups are having trouble, whether they wanted to get out of the country or they're having trouble connecting on the ground. If they're having trouble operating on a formal level and an informal level, I know a lot of people are doing, God's work on the ground there. They have, they're there, they're helping, they're able to connect with the outside and get help to the people on the ground there. I have a few friends that I'm in touch with that are really doing wonderful work on the ground over there. But again, it's not so much in a formal capacity, but they have to stay under the radar and work around the system there. Oh, and another thing I wanted to add, Hal, is that a lot of the aid workers are women, and this is a very interesting story that the aid is trickling into the population because these women cannot go deliver the aid by themselves, and in many cases their fathers or their husbands can't go with them because they have their own jobs. So now they have to hire new aid workers who are either men or wait for these women to find male escorts or family members to help them deliver the aid. So that's another issue. But again, it's laughable, it's criable, I should say, because it's such a horrific time, and they're still giving these women a hard time about going out and delivering aid.
Wow. The more aid, the better, the more help. Our foreign affairs expert, Lisa Daftari, joining us once again from Los Angeles. Thanks so much, Lisa.
My pleasure.
Well, I bet most of us would consider ourselves to be a good driver, but we may get a different answer if we were to ask someone for their opinion on that. So what should we know about driving more safely? Well, we're going to find out with our guest, Mona Delaney. She's a driving instructor and the owner of Driver's Edge in Lethbridge. Welcome to Bridge City News, Mona. So great to have you on today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So you've been a driving instructor for many years now. So what are some of the typical bad habits that Lethbridge drivers have?
Well, things that I see when we're on the road there is people tend to be in a rush. They're tailgating, they're impatient, often not signaling. One of the biggest things I also see is that they don't stop at a red light when turning right on red.
Ooh.
They just pause and go.
Okay, and what's the rule for that? You have to sit and count to 3, basically?
Yeah, you need to stop for completely, which is 3 seconds, and then you can turn, right?
Right, exactly. How much of a difference does it make to actually take a driving course from a professional? Are there any stats that indicate a safer driving record?
Well, making your car go from point A to B is a pretty simple process. But by taking a driving course or lessons from a good driving instructor will help you with your observation skills. It builds confidence and it increases your observation skills and helps you develop the ability to read the road. And therefore you can change how you drive before bad things happen. And as far as statistics are concerned, I don't have any stats on that, but most insurance companies look at driver training when someone successfully completes it as the equivalent of 3 years driving experience.
Okay, well, interesting. And is it mainly younger people taking driving lessons, Mona, or is this perhaps also an option for seniors to sharpen their driving skills? Probably most people wouldn't want to admit that they need more driving lessons once they've been driving for many years.
Well, the majority of our clients are younger people. However, we have a lot of adult students, as well as we actually do a lot of brush-up lessons with seniors, especially when they have to retest when they turn 75. And plus we also do brush-up lessons for people that have their license that want to maybe improve their winter driving skills.
Oh, that's a good point with winter upon us right now. Now, you'd mentioned before impatience and people tailgating. So what advice do you have for people who do tend to be in a hurry and like to tailgate?
Well, number one, don't do it. The number one cause of collisions on our highways, on our roads, is tailgating. It's following too closely. Right? That's the number one cause of collisions, is following too closely because you don't have time to react. You need to give yourself more time. Tailgating doesn't get you any faster to your destination. All it does is it increases your chance of being in a collision. Mm-hmm. And no matter how good you are, you can't stop on a dime.
Oh, absolutely. That's so true. And I mean, some people are just impatient drivers. They may not necessarily tailgate, but what advice do you have for, I know some members of my family that I'm thinking about are the most impatient drivers, and they just get angry at everybody else on the road for taking too long to turn a corner or to change lanes or whatever it may be.
Well, I think it's like anything. We need to be kind and we need to understand that not everybody you share the road with is an experienced driver. Maybe it's somebody that's just got their license, or maybe it's somebody that's, a little anxious. Maybe they were recently in a collision and, to get back in the car is hard for them. Or maybe it's a senior that, is driving a bit slower to compensate for, other things on the road. So, we just need to be kind.
That's a really good point, and that's things that we don't often think about, right? Especially with the new drivers and stuff. So what are the biggest safety concerns for driving in winter conditions? What should we watch out for?
Well, a lot of the safety concerns in winter is you need to make sure your vehicle is equipped for winter driving. Things like putting winter tires on, making sure you've got winter windshield washer fluid in your vehicle and you've got wipers that are good for your vehicle for the season that we're in. And make sure you clean your vehicle off. Scrape off all the windows. If you're going out of town, make sure you let someone know where you're going. Make sure that you tell them the route you're taking when you expect to arrive. And, especially we haven't had any bad weather yet, but when you're driving in poor visibility, even if it's daytime, put your headlights on so that other drivers can see you. And things to watch out for, well, make sure you're watching for weather and road conditions. Understand that other drivers might be going slower as they're nervous and might not be as skilled as you are. And not all vehicles have winter tires. So, it's going to take them longer to stop and they will more likely slide, right? And have a harder time getting going from a stop position. And also remember, bridges and overpasses will be way more slippery than the rest of the road when the temperature drops significantly, because there's no ground underneath it keeping it warm, and it does freeze up. And so you got to be really careful accelerating or braking over a bridge or an overpass.
Yeah, exactly. You've touched on so many points that I was meaning to ask you about. So I know in Lethbridge we have some long, steep hills that see a lot of accidents, particularly in the winter. So are there any specific downhill driving tips there?
Well, first of all, control your speed before you start going down that hill. Hard braking is going to result in you skidding out, which causes collisions, right? And the other thing that a lot of people don't realize, even when you're driving an automatic vehicle, you can still shift down into those lower gears that are on your gear shift. And by doing that, you're actually using the engine compression to slow your vehicle down without you having to brake.
Wow. Now, probably a lot of people that drive automatics don't realize that they can do that. So how do they learn how to do that? Should they just pull it up on a YouTube video, or what? What's the best advice for that?
I suppose they can. They can always take a lesson by driver's edge. That's part of our winter driving, right? Even going into a parking lot and, in a safe environment where there's nobody really around, and learning to, shift down through those gears. A lot of the vehicles now that are being made have that Tiptronic transmission where you can put it into the gears, where you can shift through the gears completely, right? And it's a great way to slow your car down and when you're driving on really icy roads, so that you don't have to brake as hard and slide.
Mm-hmm. I feel like I'm in a driver's ed course right now. So Mona, how about what is the best way to get traction when starting to drive from a full stop on a slippery road? Sometimes we all see it happen. The tire spins, we don't go anywhere.
Exactly. But the biggest thing is don't gun it. Just really gentle pressure on your gas pedal, and understand it's going to take you longer to get going. And so make sure that vehicles are further away before you start to pull out than you normally would.
Mm-hmm. That's right. And you had mentioned winter tires. So how much of a difference do these winter tires make? Is it worth it to get them?
Absolutely worth it to get them. Winter tires are made of a softer rubber compound, and they have superior traction in the winter compared to your regular all seasons, which really aren't made for winter at all, especially here. And you can really tell who has the winter tires and who doesn't, right? The difference you have in the control when you're stopping and getting going is absolutely night and day. So it's totally worth it to get them.
Okay. And then you'd also mentioned making sure that your windows are properly wiped off. I know I'm guilty of this, but sometimes people do drive with very poorly scraped windows, which makes it hard to see, obviously. So are there any rules when it comes to scraping windows? I know, like I said, I'm guilty of that sometimes. You don't give yourself enough time and you don't want to.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing is, you need to clean the snow off your windows, your roof, the hood of your car, the trunk of your car, your lights, your license plate. Otherwise, you can be fined for not cleaning off your vehicle. And, even your license plate alone, the law says it has to be clean and readable at all times. The fine for that is $155. I'm not sure what the fines are for not cleaning your windows off, but even in the Highway Traffic Act and Motor Vehicles Act, it does say that even the snow blowing off your vehicle, if it causes a collision with other drivers, you can be fined.
Wow. See, and like this is stuff that it's so easy to forget about when you're a seasoned driver and you've been driving for many years. You just kind of get in your car and you go and you don't think about it. You'd also mentioned windshield washer fluid being topped up. I know, especially living here in Chinook territory where it's cold and it's warm, cold and warm. I mean, we're constantly seeing that snow melt and we're always using our windshield wiper fluids. And yeah, you're right. That makes a huge difference. Also, I guess when the wipers have ice on them, we need to make sure that the ice is all knocked off of them, I'm guessing.
Absolutely. That should be part of your routine when you come out to clean your car off. Start your car, get your defrost on, and clean your car off properly. And then usually by then your car is warm enough for you to be driving it. And, if your windshield wiper is full of ice, you're not going to be able to use them properly to see out your window.
Yeah, exactly. I guess it's all just giving yourself more time in the morning in the winter. It's just something we have to live with.
Most people aren't aware of it. You can actually get a ticket if you don't have windshield washer fluid in your reservoir in your vehicle.
Yeah, you're right. I didn't even know that. I guess how would they know except if your windows were completely muddy and it was pretty obvious.
Exactly.
Now, Mona, here in Lethbridge, we have a lot more roundabouts and traffic circles than we used to. So can you maybe remind people what the rules are on these? I know this is a personal pet peeve of mine.
Okay, so first rule that you have to know is the vehicles on your left have the right of way. Okay, so that means when you're entering the circle, you have to yield to people already in the circle, because they're on your left. The second thing is you shouldn't be lane changing in a traffic circle. Whatever lane you enter in, you need to stay in it and exit out of it. And then the third rule that we teach is unless otherwise posted, drivers entering the traffic circle on the outside or the right lane should take the first exit. Now, an example is if you come up to the top of Whoop-Up Drive and Meaty Trail, there's that big traffic circle. That particular one is otherwise posted where that outside right lane can take the first or the second exit. And one of the other things that's really important is that drivers signal right to tell you that they're planning to exit. And you don't want to signal too soon. So when you pass the exit just before the one you want, you should signal. And it doesn't even hurt when you're entering the circle if you're not taking the first exit to signal left, to let other drivers that are wanting to enter the circle know that you're continuing around the circle. Signaling is huge. It's communication.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. What about driving tips for highways? I know we're talking a lot about city driving, but especially in the wintertime, do you have any specific advice for drivers when traveling at high speeds?
Well, biggest thing is increase your following distance. The faster you go, the longer it takes you to stop, right? Scan ahead. Scanning ahead is huge. Look for cross traffic, other side roads that are coming onto your highway, and for people pulling out. Make sure you're checking your rearview mirror every 8 to 12 seconds. It's important as a driver, no matter where you're driving, to know who's behind you, who's coming up beside you, who might pass you, right? And look at the yellow lines on the road. They're there for a reason. And if the line is not broken, you should be passing. And one of the biggest things is be patient. Be patient, especially in the winter. Some drivers are more nervous. They're going to drive slower. And just be patient and don't pass when it's not safe.
Yeah, good advice there. Driver fatigue also can be an issue, especially on the highway. So how do you know when it's time to take a break?
Well, there's some common symptoms of fatigue. Okay. So yawning, lack of coordination, tendency to stare, aggressiveness, itchy eyes, irritability, and you even have optical illusions. So, I mean, if you're feeling any of these things, it's always a good idea to pull over and take a rest. And it is recommended if you're on a long trip, every couple hours to take a break, get out, stretch your legs, get some fresh air. And remember, if you're feeling tired, the best solution for fatigue is sleep. So pull over somewhere safe and have a cat nap.
Yeah, great advice there. Any final advice for staying safe on the roads, Mona?
Well, just remember that driving is a team sport and we all want to try to get home safe, you know, and as I tell our students, drive safe, you stay beautiful.
Awesome, great advice. I feel like I just went through driver's training 101 there with you. Thanks so much for being with us today, Mona.
Thanks for having me. Have a great day.
Absolutely. Mona Delaney is the owner of Driver's Edge in Lethbridge. I'm Jeanette Roche on behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News. Thanks for watching.